All right, now that we've talked about how to evaluate your environment, pick a good spot, and do your research before you show up, let's talk about what you're going to see when you get in the water. So, understanding your underwater environment is as important as anything else. Now, underwater, you are a wildlife photographer, basically. You're going to be looking for wildlife, plants, coral, fish, turtles, and even your dive buddy or people in the water with you, as we already talked about, to take images of. So it's really important that you understand and you respect underwater wildlife, because first of all, it can be extremely dangerous, but secondly, it's a lot different than wildlife that you're used to being around above water. So my recommendation, first of all, is to understand the underwater marine hazards that you might encounter. A couple that come to mind right off the top of my head are the scorpionfish, the stonefish, jellyfish, and sharks. So if you're aware of what those look like and you generally stay away from them, you'll be in good shape. Of course, stingrays can also be a hazard, but they're not really out here where we're at, so I haven't had to worry about them, thankfully. Now, the hazards with the fish that I discussed were the spines on them. Now, they tend to stay on the bottom, and people tend to step on them. So if you're just aware of that, you'll be good. The other thing is to make sure that if you're going to be walking, that you've got some kind of shoe on with a hard enough bottom that'll prevent the spines from coming into your feet. You want to understand how these animals behave underwater and what you can do as a photographer. And what I mean by that is that fish are easily spooked. Matter of fact, most underwater marine life is easily spooked, meaning you can't get that close. And if you can't get that close, it can be really challenging to get a good image. So, what you want to do is to humbly observe and learn what animals will allow you to do and tolerate. Here's what I mean. Fish, some will let you get very close, and some will swim away as soon as they see you. You need to respect their boundaries, learn, and understand as a photographer what you can do and what you can't. The other thing I want to mention is that as you're embarking on this journey, you really need to respect the wildlife that you're going to try to photograph. Some of the most vulnerable parts of the underwater ecosystem are coral reef, which if you touch, handle, or step on, you can break off, or just by contacting it, you can kill it. And coral's having a hard time lately, so please watch out for it. Other things that are a little bit more sedentary, like turtles when they're resting, or some of the other fish and wildlife, clams, shells, and mollusks that might be underwater, you don't want to disturb and you don't want to needlessly harm, injure, or kill. The whole reason you're going underwater is to take some beautiful images of them, so please respect their boundaries. Don't approach too close, don't handle, and don't destroy anything that there might be underwater. It's a very fragile ecosystem, and every photographer deep down wants to bring awareness of the beauty of the underwater world and not be part of its destruction, so please be careful. Now, as you are looking around and evaluating the underwater environment, you're going to find some great things to take pictures of. Fish are one of the best. And so one of the things you want to do, though, when you're taking pictures of fish is to learn from them as you're becoming more experienced underwater. So here's my recommendation. You see a fish you want to take a picture of, you've got your composition nicely aligned, but say you're like 10 or 12 feet away, which in underwater is quite far, right? So the first thing you should do is turn and take an image, and then approach a foot or two and observe. Is the fish now nervous, looking at you, or even starting to turn and go away? Or is it involved in something that it was doing before you were approaching, right? Does it seem to be bothered by you getting closer? So stop, take another image now that you're a little closer, and again observe. Now continue to close that distance to the limits that are appropriate between you and that fish. Now you'll learn that some fish are better at letting you approach than others. Some downright won't let you get close, and others will let you get very, very close. But you need to respect their limits and learn from them. And as you observe fish's behavior, you can see what bothers and agitates them, makes them swim away, and ways that you can approach in ways that won't make them swim away. So slowly approaching is one thing that you can do to help. Quick motions of your body, your legs, your arms, turning with your camera. Quick motion will generally scare away fish, so approach slowly, smoothly, and you'll have a better chance of getting a good picture. Again, close that distance. Gradually get closer as you progress towards the fish to get the image. This will let you continually evaluate where the fish is at and also let you pause to reflect on what some better angles might be as you're doing your underwater photography. The other thing I want to talk about is some of the sedentary life, right? A lot of times people will actually move things underwater to get better images, and I would really recommend against that. It's best to simply leave things where they're at. But there is a subject underwater that you can move and not feel bad about, and of course that's other people in the water with you. So don't be afraid to pose people near interesting objects to get great underwater images. But respect those things that you'll find, right? Take wonderful images from different angles. So let me talk about angles for a second. Usually, you want to, if you're taking a picture of a person, be at about the same level as they are. Now, in underwater photography, a really interesting angle is to shoot up at your subject. So if you can get below a fish and get an image looking up, it can be really compelling. Same thing if you're at an angle, kind of close to, but looking down. So these are all things that I want you to experiment with when you're underwater and enjoy learning what looks better and what style you appreciate the most. But the most important thing is to be respectful of what you find underwater, be humble enough to let it teach you, and then to be a good steward of what you find and make some beautiful images. So some of the best images that you can get are of like anemone fish, clownfish that generally let you get pretty close. If you can find a cleaning station with a cleaning wrasse, shrimp are fantastic subjects also. Anemones themselves are beautiful and have wonderful color. Turtles a lot of times will be very patient and allow you to get quite close if you're careful. Eels are another fantastic one because a lot of times if you can find them where they're holed up, they'll be sort of just out enough where you can get some great images without disturbing them too much. Those are just a few of my favorite subjects that you can get some beautiful images of without causing a whole lot of stress in their life and putting yourself in jeopardy. So I hope that helps you understand how you can, so you can know the underwater environment better, the maritime life you're going to be taking images of, and you can be a better underwater photographer. Now, let's get started with the next lesson.